So in the world of virtual reality, we first got pulled into it actually through Justin Lin. We had worked with him on this most recent Star Trek Beyond. This actually predated Star Trek Beyond, so we'd worked with him at that point on Fast and Furious 3, 4, 5, and 6, and he got tapped to direct a Google Spotlight story. It was going to be his first VR experience, a live-action VR experience with visual effects. So he got tapped to do the Google Spotlight story, a live-action VR experience with visual effects, and asked us if we would get involved in prevising the experience because he had never done a 360 full virtual reality film before. Frankly, I'm not sure if anyone had ever done a full 360 virtual reality narrative film before at that point. And you know, in our naivete, we just said, sure. Like, we'll be there. What time and where should we be? So we showed up at his offices and started prevising. We thought it was going to be, the whole film is only a couple of minutes long, and we were not anticipating it being a terribly difficult or long project because the story, frankly, was relatively simple in terms of visualization and what they were looking. It was all being shot live action with the addition of visual effects. So what they were looking for from us, again, was not all that complicated. And what we discovered over the course of it was that there is a whole new language and a new set of rules about filmmaking in virtual reality. This idea of immersive cinema, you cannot rely on the tried and trusted cinematic rules that we've been using for the past 100+ years. How quickly you can move a camera, how quickly you can accelerate a camera, how close action can be staged to the camera. These are all questions that really needed to be addressed and explored and evaluated. So our previs team, which was only going to be on for a few weeks, ended up staying on for a few months while we really kind of went through variation after variation of how to move this story forwards. You're not just standing still and kind of experiencing one event from one point in space. You're in Los Angeles and you're moving from street to subway, from subway to the LA River, and the story progresses forwards and there's a lot of motion in it. And in virtual reality, motion is a really difficult issue to address. You want to be able to be dynamic, you want to be able to move the camera around, but if you move the camera too quickly, you run the risk of making people feel a little queasy and a little nauseous. If you move it much too quickly, you run the risk of really making them sick. So that really opened my eyes up to this notion that there's this whole new world of kind of immersive cinema, VR filmmaking, and all the rules that go into it and all the experimentation and exploration, which for a visualization company like Proof is, that's gold. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing for 14 years. So, coming on the heels of that experience, we decided to launch a new division of Proof called Proof Immersive Entertainment. PRIME is the acronym that we call it for short. And the goal of PRIME is really to focus on this idea of immersive entertainment and virtual reality and kind of get into this new world of immersive cinema and narrative storytelling. It is definitely difficult to separate the hype from the reality when you talk about VR and AR. Simply because it doesn't exist yet. We don't really know what the reality of it is going to be. There's a lot of speculation about what it could be. There's a lot of speculation about what the hardware will be. Until the stuff really comes to market, it's going to be hard to understand, what its potential is and where it's really going to settle out. On my part, just as an individual, I have to say I'm really excited about what can be achieved through virtual reality. I think some of the experiences that I've done personally have affected me on an emotional level that is far more profound than any theater-going experience with surround sound and stereo and high frame rate than I've ever done. So I think there's something really remarkable about the way in which this technology it's kind of like the Matrix. It kind of goes right into your brain in some really interesting ways. And I think that I don't really know what that means. What I know is that it has some remarkable potential, and therefore is something that can't be ignored. And I think that we're, as human beings, we're always looking for exciting experiences. We're always looking for more immersive experiences. I think that's that's what drives bigger screens. That's what drives the, moving films from 2D into stereo. I think that's what drives, the surround sound system. So this is yet another kind of, stepping stone on that march towards these more immersive experiences that we yearn for. So on that front alone, I think that the hype is well worth it. Whether we're going to see millions of people walking around with headsets on, that's the part that we can't know yet. The technology that is going to kind of usher in this new media probably doesn't exist yet. The technology that we have now is sufficient. It is enough to start to experiment and explore. But I think it's, my hope and my feeling is that what we're seeing now in terms of hardware and software is really just the baby steps, the first kind of few iterations on an evolution that eventually will be as ubiquitous as, cell phones and sunglasses, and it'll be one of those things. It'll become, eventually these will become everyday objects. And at that point, it'll be interesting to see what the experiences really are that people are going to look for out of virtual reality and augmented reality. Now we're looking at it as an extension of cinema. How can we take a movie-going experience and create some different, more immersive experience from it? The other tack is looking at live events and, hey, I'm going to put you courtside, I'm going to put you ringside. If that's what we're doing in 5 years, I'll be amazed. I think that the notion of what is good VR entertainment, what is good VR content will evolve as rapidly as the hardware will evolve. And at this point, it's not so much about figuring out what it will be as much as beginning to understand kind of what it is and just getting on that evolutionary path so that, as a company, Proof is right there, right alongside the content creators and the creatives who are making the content, and also kind of keeping up with the development of the hardware and software as it changes.